So Fred,
Yes, sir.
thanks for coming. Appreciate it. I'm a massive Formula One fan, so this is quite a privilege, to be honest. It's great that the sun is shining directly in my face, as I thought it would be. Yeah, I did one of these earlier and it was burning the back of my head, so hopefully I have an all-round tan by the time I've completed this today. So anyway, look, I suppose everyone's kind of keen to understand maybe your career to date, really, Fred. We were talking a little bit earlier because we'd never met until today. But maybe we'll start with that. You've been in aerospace for a number of years, and tell us the journey of how you've got to Williams.
It's an interesting journey, definitely. I would not qualify myself as an F1 guy, which makes me an odd species in F1. And we spoke about that earlier. It's actually probably an asset that we have at Williams to have someone coming from a completely different world into F1. But really, my background is aerospace. I'm born and raised in aerospace, spent 27 years in aerospace and large corporation. I used to work for Pratt Whitney for more than 25 years. So always in operations, manufacturing, very high-tech manufacturing business. So making airplane engines seems very different from an F1 car, but to some extent, it's also similar. There are very, very close similarities, but also very, very big and fundamental differences. For example, the life cycle of an airplane engine is 40 years. So the way we design, produce, and work on operational efficiencies is completely different. In F1, we produce for a few parts, and then we change design, and we reinvent ourselves. And so it's an R&D environment. So completely different from that perspective, but from other areas, for example, the aerodynamics, high technologies, composites, and high titanium, and other complex metal. I think this is very similar.
Yeah, cool. I mean, for your benefit and for your benefit and everybody else's benefit here, I came from a completely different environment as well. So when I came into THG, I only knew how to use Facebook at the time. That was my e-commerce experience. I don't even think I was ordering clothes at that time from e-commerce. And I was living out in Vienna in Austria with a beautiful life. But THG endured me back to Manchester quite simply because they felt like it was a bit of a mission. It was a smaller business then, 100 people. And I was around about 7,000 people in total. But I joined the business because I had every B2B contact in health and fitness in the world. I knew nearly every CEO of major fitness chains because that was my industry at the time. Because we bought a brand called MyProtein, and MyProtein is one of our own brands, which has now been internationalized into 50 odd different countries in 35 different languages with every payment method you can think of, with the fulfillment all over the world and also localized couriers. But we had to build that from scratch, and I knew nothing about that at all. I came in simply to just put product in gyms, do a B2B job for us. And then because of I was really inquisitive, I ended up running, the trading division itself, where we started building. We only had myprotein.com, one website. And then crazily, we launched Ireland next, which seems a bit stupid now, especially because Japan is worth about 200 million for us, and it's the second biggest country in the world. So what then, so where I'm going with this is ultimately, I went through kind of a process with THG to the point of where I am today as Chief Operating Officer of a product we've now created as one of our assets. We had to build websites, we had to translate websites, we had to solve so many different problems, and my role has gone from problem to problem to problem to problem by solving them all. And what I like to think now is we've gone through so many iterations of mistakes, so many iterations of success, that actually we've got a really good story to tell. So because we've got fulfillment and courier services now, which is kind of my world, moving product and looking at efficiencies, I think that is quite a testimonial for a 3PL or a courier management service to say, we've built brands from nothing to billions, and we've got the infrastructure for you to do the same without making the same mistakes. So I think we've been on a very similar journey. I've not built aeroplanes or jet engines or anything like that. You're a lot cooler than I am, for sure. But look, how's Williams embraced the digital era? I know you've only been there a certain period of time, but how is it embracing the world of the digital era specifically?
I think our starting point is further behind compared to other things, and we're currently going through a massive transformation from all aspects, and digital is definitely part of this. But we have to pace ourselves because the starting point where we come from is so far behind that to some extent we can leap on some technologies, but some others, we got to start with the basic foundation. So putting the right systems in place, putting the right infrastructures, so we can build with solid foundation eventually to get into the world of really advanced AI. So we do have some AI in our industry, and we do leverage it. We have no choice. In F1, it's part of what we do, and we need to do it for just to manage the quantity of data that is collected through a race weekend. We have to do this, but there's some fundamental building blocks that needs to be put in place at Williams before we can get to where we want to be, and that is going to take time. There's no secret recipe. Everything is incremental, so it's small gains year on year, day after day. And being an operations guy yourself, you probably know that nothing comes from free. It's really hard work just to have little incremental gain and operational efficiencies that would really bring us to where we want to go.
How
really
transparent is that across all of the teams? How do they stay aligned to a common goal, which is ultimately to win races?
Well, that makes it easy, because in F1, the purpose is very simple. It's not complex. We want to win World Cups, so the World Championship. We want to win races. So it's completely different. When you come from a different corporate environment, there are multiple objectives, conflicting objectives that you got to deal with on a day-to-day basis. In F1, this is a battle we don't have. There's one purpose, one common objectives, and everybody that wants to work in F1, they know what it is, and they come in because of that. So it's not a war to try to motivate the workforce or try to engage them towards a purpose. They know it. So that's not where we need to focus. The focus is really on putting the right processes in place and the building blocks that we need that will bring us where we want to go.
Yeah, our common goal, I think, between maybe the two businesses, just listening to your answer there, is everything we've built over the last 20 years has been built with one single obsession, which is the end consumer, the person ordering the product. So we have a lot of brands that use the Ingenuity platform, as Rich explained before, whether that be for technology, marketing, or operations, or all three together. We ultimately have one obsession, which is to deliver that parcel or that service exactly on time every time. The software that we have built ourselves, we're vertically integrated, so we're not just plugged into a load of services. Actually, this is properly vertically integrated. There are warehouses, we've built them, we've created the choice of automation, we've created the optimization of automation via having the software drive automation ourselves instead of having somebody else responsible for it. Because if we didn't do that, then our brands would not have grown as fast as they have done over the years itself, and the brands that actually are on the Ingenuity platform now wouldn't be benefiting from that. That's honestly, it's a genuine obsession. I think we deployed 15,000 operational deployments into our software in the last 12 months. That's about 45 a day.
Well, that is very interesting, because that's probably where there are some very big commonalities between the two businesses, because that customer obsession is probably one of the biggest factor that brought you where you are today. And when I came in F1, it's different, because unless you come from a corporate world, the customer focus, you're born with it. So I've lived with it. I've dealt with customers, big airlines customers, for the past 25 years. And now I'm coming into F1, and I'm starting to bring the customer conversation in F1. And people are looking at me like, what do you mean customers?
You're the crazy guy.
Well, we have two guys racing a car every weekend. There are customers. There's 50 guys at a race weekend to make the car mechanics. They are my customers. So when I go to a race, that's exactly what I'm doing there. You know, we spoke earlier, what's my role? Why do I not go to all races? Because my job is to manage the business. But when I do go to a race event over a weekend, my goal is to understand the customer's expectation. What is it that they need to perform over the weekend? What kind of efficiency they expect from us operationally to deliver to them over a weekend, so they can do their work efficiently, they can get the car ready to get it on the track on time, and they don't run after everything because nothing's ready for them to race. So I think that customer focus that I'm trying to bring in the organization is something different. And in F1, this is not typical. I'm coming in from a left field with that customer a conversation that is not really ingrained in Formula One specifically.
By the way, Fred doesn't go to Formula One races, he told me before. I think you've only been to a few, right? Which is crazy.
Yeah, well, when I go to a race, like I said, it's to understand the customer requirements, but my role is to manage the more than 1,000 people working at home base, and that's what you don't see in Drive to Survive. When you watch it on Netflix, you don't get to see the real life behind, but really there's an
Have
organization.
you been on Drive to Survive? Are you on it? Or are
It's
you
funny,
just in the
funny enough,
background?
last year when we filmed with them, we filmed the Montreal Grand Prix, and I'm from Montreal. So I was there with my family. All my family, they're in the episode
Are they
with
really?
millions, but I'm not.
Yeah. Oh, really?
So,
Okay.
yeah.
They're more celebrities than you are, but you've got the cool job. Yeah. So in terms of data then, data just being arguably the engine behind performance, would it be fair to say data is the engine behind performance? You need data to augment every single decision you make. I've always wondered, have you got the ability to re-simulate a race based on data? If a driver, for instance, took his foot off the gas as he comes to a certain corner, I mean, how much data do you generally go into to see whether it's the driver or the car or the software?
The secret is really how we build the AI softwares behind to make sure that we correlate data between real track data that we capture through our we have more than 300 sensors on the car that captures more than 1 terabyte of data every race that happens. So over an hour and a half, that's the quantity of data that we acquire in the race. So that correlation between real data from the track, simulation softwares that we run at home base, and wind tunnel data. So the correlation between the drivers that drives the sim, home base, the wind tunnel data that we capture in the track. So the correlation between these three elements is where AI comes into play, because the quantity of data that we acquire, we need to cut through it to make sure that we have the best representation of what happens on a race weekend. For example, we scan every circuit, because when they resurface a circuit, the bumps on the track changes location, so everything is different. So all of the tracks are scanned, and
how do you scan it? Is it just another car driving through?
No, there are 3D scanned with scanners that we use, and that data is captured and redeveloped into our own internal software for the simulations that we do home base. So we run simulations 24 hours a day to maximize tire management, vehicle dynamics, performance balance. So all of this is managed this way.
We have built our own simulator, probably not as cool as your simulator, but basically in one of our facilities in New Jersey, for instance, we can probably get 250,000 units a day out of that facility, which is quite a lot, and that's picking to order. So a robot would would bring the units to a human would pick them, put them in a box, and it goes through automated sortation. And basically we can flip that from 250,000 units to 650,000 units, arguably day on day, by changing strategies. But what we're trying to do now is understand if I'm bringing a bin, which is just what the products are presented in, and it takes 6 seconds every single time, the rotation of that to a human, if I can cut that in half to 3, that means I can double my output without spending another penny on any capital investment whatsoever. And that for us is where the sweet spot is. So when we buy automation, let's say we've chose the right option of automation, it's the optimization of automation where you actually gain share. So for instance, year on year, our cost in one of our warehouses in Europe has actually improved by 20% in terms of efficiency and cost reduction, quite simply through turning the screw on the software. So it's marginal gains, very much like a race, very much like so with our simulator, what we can do is look retrospectively back at, say, last Black Friday or Cyber Monday or Singles Day in Asia. We can re-simulate. If we'd have batched our orders differently, would we got a greater output? So this year, in another facility that we've probably got out 300,000 units a day, and it's got 60% more volume in it year on year, and we've not spent an extra penny. All we've done is enhance the software, and we will get 650,000 units out of it a day, and that means we'll be delivering to customers one day faster than we did the year before, simply because we're obsessed with the fine-tuning of that data.
And you do that through digital twins, I would guess? Or
Yeah,
what?
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to, there's a lot more cleverer people than me going through it. I mean, I give the instruction, I want 3 seconds, you've got 6, come back when it's 3.
That's
tell
easy
me exactly.
part.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me exactly how you're going to get there, please. So our world is now data science, it's engineering, it's algorithms. It's no longer what you'd expect a traditional fulfillment, which is forklift trucks, blood, sweat and tears working night and day. It's 95% of our units in the UK go through automation. In the world, all of our facilities, 50% touches a form of automation. 5 years ago, we didn't have that. To give you an example of the benefit of it, the benefit over a 5-year basis is we've reduced distribution costs as a percentage of sales by 4.6%. To give you an indication of the saving of that from an EBITDA perspective, that's £438 million saved. And then you look at inflation avoidance on top of that, which £178 million avoidance of labour inflation as a result of automation. You're saving £600 million over 5 years. So it's an astonishing amount of money. You look at labour inflation in the US, for instance, it's gone up 61% in the last 5 years, since 2019. Yes, it's gone through COVID and the rest of the challenges we had. But labour inflation is arguably just something that is eating away at your profits. So my message to anybody who wants, I suppose, an asset-light touch point with fulfilment and couriers is work with a partner that will constantly evolve that product and constantly bring savings to your business, because you're going to need it. Because if it's labour intensive, then ultimately you're going to find yourself
So the automation in your industry goes through the fulfillment center and the physical automation of the process of distributing the product. If I do the parallel in our industry, the automation in F1 is not necessarily going through the manufacturing process itself, because it's an R&D environment. So the enemy of automation is, in my experience in manufacturing, is if a product is not stable enough, or it's not, the design is changing too often, it becomes very difficult to automate manufacturing. So what we're trying to focus on in terms of automation is the design and the business process automation. So for example, our CAD system and PLM, product lifecycle management system that we use to design and produce our product, we are trying to go with 3D model, for example, 3D model-based design, where we eliminate the need of 2D drawings. So we can re-leverage the 3D model we develop and design downstream through the product life cycle. So whether it's through manufacturing or production or storing the material that we produce or manufacture, we leverage that technology so we don't have to recreate 3D models on the line. So that automation of process is really allowing us to reduce lead time. Today, at Williams, our typical lead time to produce an upgrade is 16 weeks. So from the time where our aerodynamicists decide to say, okay, we want that configuration on the car to hit the track, until we show up at the track with that upgrade, it's 16 weeks. The best team on the grid, they do it in 5-6 weeks. So we really need to reduce our lead time minimum by 60-75%. So by doing that, the way to do that is really by automating this process of design to production. So we've partnered right now, and I spoke to you about that before, we've partnered with Porsche Consulting right now, and they are helping us remap and redesign our business processes to make sure we accelerate and reduce lead time. If we can reduce that lead time from 16 to 5 or 6 weeks, we're going to be able to deliver an upgrade much faster to the track. And that allows us to deliver 3, 4, 5 upgrades in one season, as opposed to right now, we can barely do 1 or 2.
None of that is restricted. You can do as many upgrades.
We can do as many as we want, as long as we manage within cost cap. We have a cost cap of roughly $130 million a year for all the teams, and that includes our design costs and operational expense. So as long as we manage in that budget, we can deliver upgrades to the car every weekend if we want. The challenge is how quickly we can get it out there and deliver it to the track.
And how do you prioritize? Is there any internal debate on?
Oh yeah, yeah. We did speak about that a bit earlier too. I think it's a very actual debate, because my role is to transform the organization. My colleague Pat in design, his role is to make the car fast. So it's always a debate between, do we transform for the long term, or do we deliver a new front wing for the next weekend races? And this is a constant debate. So we try to level up our business cases and say, okay, let's try to, the common ground should be lap time. So how much lap time an investment is going to bring to the car? So it's easy for some type of investment. For example, if we want to build a new sim, we can translate that into lap time to the track. But the example I gave earlier is leadership development. If we want to invest in leadership development, how can you connect that to lap time? So sometimes it creates animated debate in our management committee, because I'm like, no, Pat, we need to invest in leadership development because we need leaders in the organizations. Like, yes, but that doesn't make the car faster. Like, okay.
I get it. So coming back to the data point then, in race, how much, I suppose, how you have a plan to potentially finish in a certain position or whatever. How much of the planning goes according to plan?
Well,
And
we
how
have more than
reactive is-
one.
How
plan.
reactive is the,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. So how reactive is the race? It's very similar to us if we're planning Black Friday. So in my world, I've planned Black Friday 3 years ago because I need to know what my forward-looking automation, my investments are going to be, what the client base is going to look like, what volume is going to be where, the supply chain nuances of getting product from A to B, different countries, borders, etc. That starts years ago for me. I'll start talking to the trading teams a month ago about what their intentions are, and then we'll have plan A, B, and C.
Yeah.
But I will need D, E, and F as well. So
It's it's similar from that perspective. Let's say right now we know the calendar for next year, so we already know which event are going to require which specifications depending on, is it a fast track, is it Monaco, when is Monaco in the season? So when are we going to need specific configuration on a car for certain events? So we already planned that. But when the weekends approach, or when we get to the weekend, all of a sudden, we simulate different weather conditions. We know what the weather forecast going to look like. So we have simulations that run overnight, weeks before, and then we have it spits out strategies. And we have our strategist teams that looks at this and they say plan A, D, C, D, E, F, G, H, whatever you want to call them. But we have a series of strategies and then we adjust. If A happens, then we deliver C. Or if B happens in a race.
what if you see one of the other teams do something that...
Yeah, we adjust in race. So we have a team, there's a hierarchy of communication that happens to the track. So from the team home base, we have a group of engineers that are in our ops room every weekend. And that's where...
They work weekends.
Yeah, well, they definitely work weekends overnight, depending on where the race happens. But they plan and they look at whatever is going to happen or the forecast. So weather, time, the race, sunset is going to be at what time, what's going to be the track temperature, depending on the weather. And then we start to derive strategy through the weekend. And as the race happens, also the strategies plays out or not. And things happen, so we react with different teams doing, for example, pit stop at a certain time. So we readjust based on what happens out there, so live over a race weekend. But all of these strategies are thought ahead, so there's no improvisation. So when we are going through a race weekend, it's mechanical.
Yeah.
There's no improvisation. Yeah.
We potentially have to improvise under one circumstance when we think, 1 million units is going to hit a warehouse on a given day, say Tuesday, but it comes on Monday. And you've aligned your resource, you've aligned your planning, you've aligned everything. But what automation gives you is the ability to be nimble. Now, you'll be able to catch up, but you will be behind if your forecasting is not. But ultimately, we live in a world now where an influencer, if you're a fashion brand, can do something at midnight, which basically just a pair of leggings can go crazy, for instance. And that's in bulk racking, and it's not necessarily in your automation. We've got to build the nimbleness to be able to still facilitate the same service as the end consumer's expecting, because they don't. Being honest, they don't give a shit. They care about, quite simply, my order being delivered on time.
And how do you adjust the automation process with these?
Yeah, it's a good question. So normally BAU, we pick to order, which basically is self-explanatory. So we will pick units into orders, and then we'll go into automated sortation into the courier network on time, every time. But then if we've got a massive spike of orders, I mentioned before, one of our brands, My Protein in Japan, for instance, it will do 2,000 orders a day BAU, but it can go to 70,000 on a given day. Normally that's planned, but every now and then it's not planned. So we then will augment our batching algorithm structure to pick to batch, which means we're picking multiple units. I can pick maybe 3,000 orders in one batch, and I'll move that into it's called rebin. It's like a pick to light. If you can imagine the old arcade machines where you're smashing the alligator's head when it pops up, you're basically putting units into different boxes when the lights come on. So really we should get teenagers working in the warehouses instead, because they'll do it a lot faster. So you're picking to light, you're putting them into different pigeonholes, and then ultimately you're picking 3,000 orders at the speed of what you would normally do, maybe 300. So that's how we can do it. But you do need additional labor to do that. So you can,
you need spikes in labor.
yeah. But because of the flexibility of agency and permanent employees, we can flex. So that our split is normally 60-40, 70-30 in favor of permanent. But then we can flex with our relationships. We don't just have one agency, we have multiple agencies. So 2 or 3 in each region where we can pool people in pretty quickly that are already pre-trained as well. So it's not necessarily going through another training cycle. They're normally people who come back because I think we pay well, so they enjoy coming back.
That's interesting because it comes back to how much of a skilled workforce do you need for a certain industry. In F1 specifically, we do have spikes as well. When there's a tough weekend and the drivers hit the wall all weekend, it's very heavy on me personally because we need to adjust. All of a sudden, attrition is high, and then we're risking not having the hardware we need to race the following weekend. So we need to adjust. But the problem that we do have locally is that we have 5 teams in the UK within 200 kilometers, and we all use the same workforce. So there's a very local war around composite laminators, for example, or very specific skills in the industry that we really, really need. So I'm working very hard. Again, from my background in aerospace, I'm used to a supply chain that is developed worldwide. So I'm fighting that battle in F1, and I'm saying, why do we need local supply chain? We can expand. We can have a bit more of a global supply chain where the challenge is going to become logistics, but then still, we can still manage with global supply chain in an F1 world. I'm convinced about it, but it's one of the battles I'm having locally because it's not the way F1 has been built over the years. So right now, trying to leverage workforce outside this radius of F1 locally in the UK is definitely a challenge, but this is a tremendous opportunity for us to build that.
Yeah, cool. I've got a controversial question for you. The driver, the hardware, or the software, between the 3 of them, the driver will always blame the software and the hardware. I hear it at the end of every race. The car wasn't great today, guys, blah, blah, blah. But you might be looking at a load of data going, bullshit. You know, it was you. So what's that relationship like?
Well, these conversations happens behind closed door, definitely
sure
every weekend.
It's not going to happen on Drive
I
to
can
Survive,
guarantee they do happen.
Yeah.
We're lucky to some extent because over the past few years, we've had, well, with my experience in F1, definitely, fantastic relationship with Alex. Alex is definitely a gem for us. He's a gentleman and he's really part of the mission we're onto. So when it's the car, we all agree. And when he makes a mistake, he acknowledges the mistakes and we're all working towards the same purpose. So in some other teams, there's this internal battle where sometimes you have war between two drivers themselves. You have internal war between manufacturing and engineering. Where we have so much to do at Williams. The transformation is not we need to do it internally, but the war is outside. We don't want to have any internal debate. So when we sign drivers, and it was part of the conversation also with Carlos, when we brought Carlos in, he needed to believe in the transformation in the mission we're in. So I think this is part of our DNA. We're working as a complete unified team towards the same goal that we have. We have no room and no time for these battles over the media, and we're trying to control this as much as possible. What happens behind closed doors happens, like any other business, but when we're out there, we're one unified team. I can guarantee
simply
that.
To win the race.
Yeah.
Before we continue, I've got to tell you about a race we had today. So, and it's quite funny for the team members in the room. We got on a flight yesterday, obviously to fly here. Someone had an idea to get a billboard for THG Fulfill in Times Square, and we just thought that person was nuts. Anyway, worked out that we could actually get it done for a certain cost. And by the time we'd landed, it was implemented and could. But the problem is, it comes on for 10 seconds every hour for 24 hours. So if you miss it for 10 seconds, we'd have been late here today. So after the filming I had to do earlier today, we all ran from here pretty much. We got a couple of cars to take us halfway. But in 28 degrees, we were like, we could run faster. So we all got out of the car, ran to Times Square and took a picture, sweating like crazy. But I said, I can't wait to meet Fred later on and tell him that we won our own personal race today, simply to get a picture for 10 seconds with us, on Times Square billboard. I just thought I had to tell you, because every race we have is, I suppose everything we do, we're just trying to win, right? Everything. Yeah. So in terms of new market entry, so US, you got Vegas and some others now as well. The popularity, how's Williams coping with the popularity in new markets, and how do you augment, suppose your brand towards that market?
So interestingly enough, in that industry, the market growth doesn't happen through operations. So I'm happy about this, because it doesn't make my life more difficult.
Well, it would go the other direction if you couldn't fix the car, though, right?
Yeah, sure. But we still produce 2 cars. We don't need to produce more. So I think the growth that's happening right now is really channeled through our marketing organization. So in the US specifically, there's more than 40 million new fans in F1, and more than half of those have been started to follow F1 in the past 5 years. So the growth of the industry in the US is massive, and it's a challenge for us to cope with it. But now that we're owned by Doralton, which is a New York-based private equity organization, helps us a lot, because we were able to start and open our own commercial office in New York. So now we have that asset available for commercial and development. We also have fan zones and a pop-up store that we now have in every US race. So the 3 US race, and also now we have we used to have the Canadian race. So now that makes us having 4 races in North America. If we had Brazil and Mexico to that, we have 6 races on this side of the world, which is 25% of the races basically for a season. So the US market is extremely important to us. 40% of the new partners in the industry are US based now, which is completely new also for F1, which used to be very Europe centric.
And by partners, you mean in partners on your...
partners like we do have. For us at Williams, we have Kraken, Steffens Bank, Duracell, right now.
MyProtein,
Sure. But do you consider this as a US base, or you consider?
Yeah, we do, because 30% of our revenue is in the US as a group.
Okay.
And a higher proportion of our profit is in the US. So we're quite proud of that. As much as we were a UK-born business, everything is swaying towards the US.
So should I say now that it's a US business?
Do it. Go. Why not? Yeah. Why not? You can say whatever you want, Fred. Yeah, it's fine.
But so a lot of our new partners actually are US based. So there's a massive growth in the industry in the US. And that is probably driven also from the Netflix Drive to Survive. We were talking about that as well earlier. It helps boost the industry.
It scales beyond borders, doesn't it? Yeah,
definitely.
All you need to do is translate that program, and off you go.
Yeah.
You have races all over the place. You're going to be busier. You're going to need a few Freds. So I suppose breaking down new markets is something that we've done for 20 years. When we built our own brands, we had to do the same thing. As I mentioned before, we only had one website for .coms, and then we're thinking, well, what do we do next? And you ultimately follow the traffic, right? The traffic was coming from Germany. Launch a German website in German. It sounds so simple, but we built the capability. We call it a franking machine. It was in, Hannah might be able to keep me honest here. I think it was 2015 or 2016. Our CTO said to us, what's the one thing we could build from a technology business that would change the business? And we said, to build a website in 24 hours, translated every payment method, can you do it? And he went away and called this thing the franking machine. So basically we could take, as long as we have the translations, etc., as long as we have that, then we could flip a website on really, really quickly into German, Italian, Swedish, whatever. And we launched 70 websites natively with all the relevant payment methods in the space of 12 months, which was just one hell of an achievement.
And you do that through the leveraging AI, is that what you get?
Well, there's AI, there's the technology infrastructure, it's all of those things. Yeah, I mean, we've been using AI. AI is a buzzword today. We've been using it since 2014, So it's just everything you touch has an AI touch point. But so we launched 70 websites there at the same time. But then what we found is my role goes where the problems are. So, some of the parcels ended up being a little heavier because cross-border e-commerce means people order in bulk because they want that parcel from a UK brand or they want it from a Spanish brand, send it to the US. Now, how do you internationalize and break down those borders? There's tax, there's duties, there's regulatory, there's all these things before you even think about operations. And people come to me and say, can you get a warehouse in Timbuktu? Yeah, really easy. But can you put your product in that country from a regulatory perspective? Is it legally allowed? Have you set up your legal entities, etc.? There's so many different pitfalls for brands to move. Say, as Rich mentioned before, there's loads of brands that want to go from the US into Europe. Now, you need a vehicle to be able to do that. And we've done all of these things. Honestly, to the point where I was growing my protein, the sports nutrition brand I mentioned before, and I Googled veterinarian certification because no one in the business knew that 13 years ago. So we've made every mistake that you can make. And I'm humble about that, because what we'll do now is we'll fast track everybody else to avoid those pitfalls. We've already made those mistakes. Why not work with, THG Fulfill or Ingenuity specifically to internationalize your brand when we've done it so many times, and we've already got the infrastructure and the ecosystem to plug in whatever you want on a modular basis. So you don't have to take the end-to-end, building the website, translate, cloud hosting, fulfillment couriers. You can take it in a modular fashion. You can choose whatever you want.
So talking about making mistakes, one question I would have is, at the beginning, at the early stage, you have no fear of mistakes because there's not much to lose. But when you get to a certain point, where you are right now, the fear of mistakes become a challenge because you don't want to do mistakes, because that would bring you backwards. And it's a constant debate we do have internally, because where we are, there's nothing much to lose. So we can leapfrog some technologies, we can leapfrog different processes and take risks, because if it works, it's going to help us accelerate our team coming back. But in your industry and where you are right now, how do you keep that spirit of failing fast and learning, and then moving on and learning from every single mistakes to continue growth and expanding the business?
It's in our DNA, I'd say, because of the transition of being brand owners to technology platform, and then having a host of services within the technology platform itself. It's within our DNA to service the end consumer. Being honest, the client in between that, it could be Nestle, Coca-Cola, anything, the relationship is really important, but honestly, I don't care. I care about their end consumer, because if we deliver for them, you're delivering for the client. So you've got to just stay laser focused on one thing, which is the end consumer. They're ordering something from your platform one way or the other. And if there's issues in fraud detection, or there's issues in payments, etc., we will see it from an alerting perspective in real time. Very similar to your race. That's a race for us. We see every single part of that race, and we've got to then understand if there's a blockage, and we'll see it in real time. For instance, again, we've probably got hundreds of Grafana graphs all over. It's a bit like the stock exchange on our trading floor. You'll just see augmentation of orders for every 5 minutes. You'll see, I was speaking to, I think it's Kim in the audience somewhere before, about customer funnels, moving the data from homepage to list page to product page to basket to checkout. And all of those things, how do you move more customers through these funnels? And just quite simply stay obsessed with the end consumer, because you want them to buy something. Well, it's a game, really. It's a race, it's a game, it's whatever. But you're looking at traffic conversion, and you're kind of obsessed because you've been born to try and grow brands, and that's within our DNA. So I guess it's fear of failure, but ultimately we're just built differently. We've only just come out of our teenage years. We're 20 now. Yeah. We were 19 last year, so it's still a startup mentality that we have itself. So there's a lot of tenacity going on. Yeah.
That is good, because when you're at the top, it's tough to stay there.
Yeah.
And we see it in my industry, in F1, definitely you see it. The teams that are at the top, they start to build complacency, and they think that they can continue to win forever, but it doesn't work this way. You need to continue challenge yourself and continue build that transformation spirit and that DNA of entrepreneurship, where you don't fear making mistakes and you keep challenging yourself. But when you're at the top, there's a lot to lose. If you have a championship at play and you make a mistake, you go back and you lose it. So people and different organizations, different teams now are going through this. They're at the top. They want to stay there. But they become conservative and they start to go back, because in F1, if you stop progressing, you start to go back.
True.
So I think this is an opportunity for us to accelerate and leapfrog our performance and bring this team back, because right now that fear is not there. For us, there's nothing to lose, really, to transform this organization. And if we can build that DNA part of the organization, so for example, we've issued last year, we built a new culture framework for the organization, built on 5 values and behaviors. So these 5 values that we are trying to promote in the organization are really what is going to propulse ourselves in that transformation journey, so we don't fear. And innovation is part of those 5 values, where we want to trigger these innovative spirit in the organization, where people can really excel in what they do, specifically in engineering.
Is there an internal target? It's probably more of a personal question, this one, so I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there a target internally in terms of when you think you could win a drivers' championship or constructors' championship?
There is, but we keep this to ourselves, because we don't control what others do.
True.
And we do control what we control. We control how we improve. So we have a target for ourselves. We have a target on lead time reduction, on performance, lap time we want to bring to the car. How is that going to play out against other teams? It's difficult to say, because we don't control what they do. So we can say whatever target that we do have versus other teams, but in reality, it's what we're really fighting is improving what we do today. We want to really transform the organization and bring it back to where it belongs. And to do that, I think it's looking ourselves internally as opposed to looking more at what other team does. That's how we're going to get there.
So what technologies moving forward do you think would shape the future of racing? Is there anything that you're not using today from a technology perspective that maybe you're not allowed to because you're restricted in many ways, right? But
there's a lot of technologies right now in manufacturing that we're working into. For example, I would say probably 10 years ago, 3D printing started to be very popular. And especially
so that
in
could build the car for you then, yeah?
Yeah, but specifically in the F1 industry, because it's an R&D environment, 3D printing and metallic printing, DMLS is a technology that allows us to improve incrementally very quickly. It's also very good on weight reduction, because we can combine 5, 6, 10, 15 parts together all of a sudden in one part and print it.
Would that help aerodynamics then as well?
Yeah, definitely. But the challenge with that technology is engineering is completely different. A traditional Formula One designer wouldn't know how to deal with 3D printing. You need new kids coming out of engineering that knows how to use this technology. So that was about 10 years ago. Right now, the real technology gain is in software. That's where the trend is, software and really pushing the AI technology and way of thinking to the next step. So we've brought in a new chief information officer recently that came from HPE. And Soren comes in with a lot of experience in building that software technology that will help us build what we need and the foundation that we need from a software and technology to help us get to where we want to go. But we're no longer right now in the manufacturing technology per se. We're more into the software side.
How do you balance the demands for speed, or the need for speed to?
Yeah,
I meant that. With I suppose operational precision. What comes first between the two?
It's interesting, because when we all started the new management committee coming into Williams, there was a very ingrained mentality of thinking that pushing stuff to the track was being fast. So managing chaos and getting parts out there at whatever cost. But really, right now, we're shifting this towards more of a quality focus. With quality is speed. Making sure that you don't have all the redos is really what's going to make a big difference out there. So trying to bring this mentality around quality and making sure that we don't pass defect on down the flow lines, or down from design to operation and operations to the track is really making a huge difference. But it's a shift. Right now, I'm fighting a battle internally. For example, on Friday evening, when we need to ship a front wing for a race in Austin, and the front wing is not the spec, I'm pushing back. I'm not shipping this. I'm sorry, guys. That front wing is not what it has to be. So people are saying, well, we need to race. Yes, we will race, but we'll race something that is worth racing. So I think it's a shift, but it's adding a lot of pressure in the organization, because now when I'm pushing back and I'm resisting the pressure to ship something that is not according to what we should be shipping or to spec, it adds a lot of pressure on the organization, because now they're going to have to catch up afterwards or accelerate later down the road instead of passing the defect downstream. I think that is one of the big shift in the mentality that we're trying to do right now, but it's an organization shift and a culture change that we have to go.
Maybe one last question, because I'm being told to wrap this up. I could talk to you all day. Is Formula E a risk to Formula One because of sustainability, or?
It's a very interesting question. That's why FOM, or Formula One management, came up in 2018 with the 2030 objective on sustainability to be carbon neutral by 2030. Sorry, and all the teams now that are down this journey, because it's a shift that we have to do. If we want to continue growing the industry, we have to make sure that we grow it in a sustainable way. So now there are massive investment in the industry and in the various teams to make sure that we go down this path and in a sustainable way. So we have a new impact report that we published, also aligned with the FOM published impact report. And in that impact report, we have a strategy based on 3 different pillars on sustainability that we're really working hard on right now. So really all the investment that we can do from a sustainability perspective that also adds performance, this is a double gain. One of these examples, for example, is solar panels. Bringing solar panels in the industry is an investment that is considered outside cap, because it's a sustainability investment. But the benefit of solar panels reduce our operating expense, which is an expense in cap. So that expense reduction allows us to invest more in performance on the car. So this is a double benefit. So we're focusing on that type of investment.
Brilliant. Good. Well, Fred, I'm going to say thank you very much, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank